Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
Today during our Farm Basics time, we're going to talk a little bit about a particular life cycle of plant that's just a little bit unusual. It's called winter annual.
As soon as you get away from doing tillage on your farm, you're going to see those weeds that popped up late in the fall, winter annual weeds, that all of a sudden in the spring, they already have some pretty good size to them. They have some pretty decent root systems. These are weeds, winter annuals, that germinate in the fall. Now wait a second, we're talking about an annual weed. How can it germinate in the fall, survive a winter in the northern United States, and still be growing in the spring?
Well, it just does. And I just have some notes here because I couldn't remember all the names of all these different annual weeds. There are a whole bunch of them. Weeds like shepherd's purse, horseweed, Venice Mallow can even be, it's not always, but it can be a winter annual. Prickly lettuce, henbit, pepperweed, Speedwell. I mean, I could go on. There's an enormous list.
I think about Marestail. That's one of them that we seem to fight the most across the country, where it starts off in the fall and now in the spring it's pretty big. And you may be thinking, well, I'll just do some light tillage then in the spring. Not when you've got a big, tough weed like that. A lot of times you'll see Marestail, it just gets kinked over a little bit by tillage and it just keeps on growing. So it gets to be a little bit of a challenge. What happens a lot of times for farmers in reduced tillage situations is they have to rely on herbicides. Maybe it's Roundup, maybe it's Gramoxone, maybe it's Sharpen, a number of herbicides that can do a burn down, basically control all the weeds before you go and plant the crop. So burn down applications become very popular when you have winter annual issues like the weeds that we've talked about.
In the northern part of the United States also, it's very difficult a lot of years to get harvest done, get the fertilizer on, get the tillage done, and all this has to occur before freeze up. And unfortunately, sometimes freeze up comes pretty early. On our farm, it's happened as early as early November. So to think that we're going to get all that fall work done and then we're going to go out and spray some weeds, and we especially see these winter annual weeds, like Darren said, in a no-till or strip-till situation, but it's really difficult to get out and have the time to actually do some spraying in the fall. So that's why on a lot of farms we see those winter annuals just left, and if they happen to survive the winter, now it's a big plant come spring, and it's a real challenge to deal with in no-till and strip-till environments.
So we plant the crop and we've got some tiny little spring or summer annual weeds that are starting to germinate. Then you've got these great big winter annuals. It's really tough for farmers to dial in exactly what rate of herbicide they need. While a low rate may work great for all the weeds that just germinated in the spring, they need a much higher rate for those winter annuals. On the other hand, they may have to spray earlier than they normally would. So they're out in their fields spraying those winter annuals when the spring and summer annuals haven't even come up yet, and they've got to come back and make an extra application in crops. There are a lot of challenges when winter annuals are on a farm.
Well, once again, a winter annual is just a plant that's going to live for 1 year or less. It's going to germinate in the fall. And so by spring, when a farmer would normally plant his spring crops, these weeds could be good sized.
One other weed that gets some pretty good size to it is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?